Yum, yum!
Greg here from Pixel Fondue. It's Friday, April 5th, and this is MODOVerse Rewind, episode 3. Just before I get started, I was just at Phil's Coffee, grabbing a coffee here before I wrap this up here for the week, and they had a piece of toast sitting in the window that has probably been there for like 4 hours. It had a little bit of jelly slapped on top and some almond butter. $7. $7 for a piece of toast with some jelly and almond butter. I don't know what the fall of Rome looked like. Probably a little like $7 toast. Anyway, just moving on. A bit of an eventful few weeks here since the last one. We've had the Foundry was acquired by another company. Talk about that. MODO 13 has been released. Some updates to a few plugins and a few rendering programs as well, which we'll talk about, Octane and V-Ray and ProRender. And yeah, let's get started here. So I was just looking at this picture, actually. This is, of course, Qui-Gon versus Darth Maul in a pot full of fondue cheese using the Lego kit that you can grab. Just Google it, or there's a link in a video somewhere on Pixel Fondue that shows you how to install it. And programmed by Eric Solvey, who did the bullet physics in MODO, and also just sort of did this on a side. And I was like, I wonder where he is, because I know he's not at Foundry anymore, and so I looked him up on my LinkedIn, because who doesn't do that? And yeah, it looks like he's at Epic now, because Epic has all the money. They got the Fortnite money. Anyway. Moving on. So yeah, maybe we'll see some MODO over at Epic. Maybe there already is MODO at Epic. I don't know. What do we got here? So, all right, I'm just going to start on the Pixel Fondue page. And Richard Yacht released Studio Lighting Kit for MODO. This was interesting to me because there's been quite a bit of conversation about Slick maybe not working so well anymore. I know Yazan had stopped sort of updating that, and with these newer versions of MODO, things tend to break as plugins get older and not if they're not updated. And, you know, HDR Light Studio is really expensive. It's a really cool program in my opinion. But this, $25 for the Studio Lighting Kit, which is pretty cool. So it's not just a bunch of HDRs. It actually, you know, has geometry with cards on there, and you can move them around and whatever, and do your HDR lighting like that. And, of course, it's compatible with V-Ray and Octane. So that's pretty cool. Like $25, it's almost like just go get it if you do product lighting or want to improve your lighting or working on a demo reel or something like that. Seems like a good deal. Just as another aside, like it's April, I'm doing my taxes, and I noticed in 2018 I just had tons of these little purchases. My wife noticed actually for the first time, from ArtStation and Gumroad, and really I think the ecosystem of this sort of 3D or content creation landscape is really changing. And so you used to have sort of big like software companies that provided plugins, and now they're just individuals selling their stuff on storefronts like Gumroad. And so, you know, this Studio Lighting Kit update or release from Richard, along with some of the other things he's put out this year. There's a new update to Mobillions from William Vaughn, and that's detailed in Pixel Fondue as well. Nice looking gun there. Mobillions is used by a lot of people who, even though it takes advantage of the mesh operation system in MODO, there's people who use Mobillions who don't really get into mesh ops in MODO. They just use Mobillions. That's their tool for sort of procedural modeling, and without really delving into MODO, it has really nice UI on the front end of it that I think William created in collaboration with Torfrick. And so, you know, I've talked about this in the past, but if this is the first MODOVerse Rewind you've seen, just so you know, that's where this is coming from. Torfrick, a famous MODO artist who does a lot of mech type modeling and things like that. But anyway, so that was updated. Let's talk about this. So CG Channel, my favorite news channel for the 3D world. If you don't go to CG Channel, I totally suggest you do. They've got a really great Twitter feed as well. I'm not huge into Twitter. I follow like 8 people on Twitter, and I never tweet. And one of those is Pixel Fondue. But I do follow CG Channel because they have a ton of breakdowns and things like that, VFX breakdowns that he posts all the time, and things that aren't necessarily on the website. So CG Channel on Twitter is pretty awesome. I definitely would suggest following that if you like this kind of stuff. Anyway, Fondue acquired by Roper. Well, who's Roper? And if you're my age, you just can't not think Three's Company, Mr. Roper. Sorry, that's just like right in my head. If you don't know what Three's Company is, Google it. It would not probably be allowed on TV nowadays. So, you know, how important is it that Roper is in charge, now owns Foundry? Well, the last company that owned Foundry was so important, I can't even remember their name off the top of my head. I probably get if I look at this, was not Carlyle Group, because, HG Capital. Whoop-de-doo, right? It just, I don't know how much of an effect these companies have on Foundry. Shane Griffith, who is the MODO product manager, did write a nice little post on the forums about it, and he's actually pretty excited about it. So HG Capital really was just a buy and sell sort of company. They weren't necessarily interested in the long-term viability of Foundry. They just wanted it to appreciate and sell it for a profit, which appears what they did. Fine. They bought it from Carlyle Group, which same thing. So this is what has been going on for a while with Foundry, and Roper is an American company, so that's different because Foundry has been is still based over in the UK, and while they have offices here, or at least have had offices here, and definitely have quite a few Americans working for them, particularly in the MODO group, or formerly at least, because Luxology was an American company. Shane is an American and is here in America, and Greg Brown, who's now the MODO product designer, taking over from Andy Brown, is also here. And I think in some ways it may just help just in terms of communication, and I think it's probably difficult to work overseas all the time. It's not like Foundry's necessarily going to leave over there, but they're going to have a little bit of a different perspective, I think, having an American company, especially an American tech company, even though these guys are in Florida, based in Florida, not Silicon Valley. There's probably a bit of a difference there. And it sounds like Roper's in for the long haul, and Shane seems optimistic they'll give them the resources they need let's see, it's a £210 million increase, license increase, let's see, blah, blah, blah. Foundry was that valued at 200 million back then. They bought it for 410 million pounds. So is that pounds? I think that's pounds. Don't know what that is in dollars, but anyway, so like basically doubled in price. But this is a $1 billion company that bought something for $500 million, and they're going to want to see it succeed. And of all the products that Foundry has, MODO really has the most opportunity for growth, in my opinion. There's only so many hardcore compositors out there, and they already kind of own that market. That's not really probably a high growth market. There's only so many. 3D painting Mari is probably a decent growth market. Maybe that's comparable to MODO, seeing the success of Substance. But now they're competing with Adobe there, so people are going to probably be getting that for free along with all the other stuff in Creative Cloud. I don't know if that's the case or not. But that's probably hard to compete against if that is the case, to justify another few $1,000 for another 3D painting program. But MODO as a design tool, and the design market is much bigger than the VFX market. So MODO as a design tool, and it's having some success there as a sort of design iteration tool, as well as a sort of an asset creation tool. So building a shoe for New Balance isn't necessarily a lot different than building a laser gun for Epic. It's just using the same tools there. Anyway, I think there's a lot of growth potential in MODO. I think maybe this is a company, hopefully, that can see that, and will have a direct line of communication to Shane, who definitely can see that, and Greg Brown, who will help implement these new changes within MODO that will be coming. And so hopefully they'll get some good budgets there and can grow the product. I'm excited about it. I'm mostly excited about it because I've gotten to know Shane over the last couple of years, and Greg and some of these other guys there. And I just tend to trust them in terms of their abilities and their respective duties, and just their I think they'd tell it to me straight if they weren't excited, and they are. And so Shane said this is the most excited and happy he's been at a company in a long time. And this is a guy who used to, I think, be in charge of 3D Studio Max, which, by the way, maybe explains why he's happier. So it's not like Shane's a newbie here. He's handled extremely large products before, much larger than MODO, and maybe we can see MODO grow. And growth helps all of us. So that's what happened. We'll see if there's any particular filter down effect to the end users. This may just be like HG Capital, where we just don't really notice typically what's going on. But maybe they'll they're hiring right now, and maybe they'll go on a more of a hiring spree, and we'll see what happens. So anyway, so that was normally an acquisition is a really big deal, but I don't know. I don't know if this is a big deal business or it's just business as usual. I'm hoping it's more on the big deal side. Anyway, so that is that's that. I do want to go. Well, actually, let's talk about this first. So V-Ray Next beta is available for MODO now. I have not had a chance to mess around with it. I've just been too busy. I use V-Ray all the time on a daily basis, along with Octane, depending on the project. V-Ray I tend to use for products that require a lot of animation, because V-Ray has CPU rendering and GPU rendering, and it has a great cloud service that I talked about in a previous iteration of the show. And so if I'm doing long animations, for instance, I'm doing an animation now that's, I swear it's like 5 minutes long, and it's highly technical, a lot of cloud rendering, a big budget for cloud rendering, and I really couldn't do it without cloud rendering. But I do a ton of product rendering as well. I tend to use Octane for that. I also use Octane for smaller animations. Octane is really well integrated into MODO, but I'll get to Octane in just a second here. But this is exciting to see, because it's been out of Maya for a while. It's been out of Max for a while. I think they released a Rhino version, maybe a SketchUp version, maybe Cinema 4D eventually. Anyway, it's gotten here to MODO. It's out. I'm going to be doing a couple videos on this in the future. And I've got a couple 2080 Ti's just waiting to go at V-Ray for MODO. In fact, I'll do a comparison video as soon as I get some time with Octane, both Octane 2018 and 2019, which is beta, alpha, whatever. Hard to tell with Otoy is available, and V-Ray Next. And I will compare with 2080 Ti's against each other. And I also compare with a couple of 1080 Ti's I've got in the office, those two versus each other, and also versus themselves, 2080 Ti versus 1080 Ti. Now, Otoy's Octane 2019, I believe, has RTX support, RTX being the cores on the 2080s. That'll accelerate ray tracing. I'm not sure V-Ray Next, in fact, I'm pretty sure V-Ray Next does not support RTX yet, but Chaos Group has been very open about this. They've already done a fair amount of development work, and they've shown some demos and released some blogs about it, and it will be coming. So that will be interesting. Okay, so that's V-Ray Next, and yes, like I said, I'll put these links below, but Octane Render RTX based on Vulkan, the preview release is what they're calling it, is out. So 2018 just came out. Octane 4 just came out. And then there was 2018, and now it's 2019. Otoy just reminds me of Red Camera a little bit. They've got great technology, but they tend to announce things and muddle up releases and never release things maybe they announce. And I don't know. So that's just how they operate. I think they're just super ambitious, basically. And but they do have a great product, and so I'll be looking at 2019. 2018, I actually did some videos for Paul Kinane, I believe his last name is, Paul. I have to look it up. Face Off on the groups. Contacted me, and I've gone back and forth with Paul for a number of years, just on forums and things like that. Let's see if I can find those videos here. Oh, here they are. So yeah, here's the Octane videos. So supports vertex maps. Anyway, Paul contacted me. It was nice to actually see Paul in person via Skype and talk to him a little bit. He does a ton of stuff for in terms of plugins with Octane. It's not just MODO. He supports like Nuke and Rhino and like a couple of the CAD programs and maybe Revit, a whole bunch of stuff. Anyway, he's got a lot. The guy's got a lot on his plate. And because of MODO and the shader tree, and also the way MODO does its UI with these sort of XML configs and things like that, I think he always has to put a little more work in the MODO version. But he does a great job, and we're lucky to have him, in my opinion. But yeah, vertex maps, so black and white vertex maps, color vertex maps are in Octane 2018, which you can get now, as well as Cryptomat support, which is awesome. And I'll get back to that in a minute, because Cryptomat is available not just in things like Nuke and Fusion now. You can get it in After Effects, and I have the link here. I haven't installed it in After Effects. Works pretty well. It's an airplane. Vectron's kind of weird. We'll see what that is. This is geometry that is essentially procedurally generated with an OSL script. This is just some fractal thing. It's super fast. Like, this is just it requires basically no memory because it's just a little program that's run. So we'll see. Like, this isn't, it looks cool, but it's not super useful. We'll see if we can get some OSL trees or rocks or anything like that. These Vectron objects can be hooked up to a replicator, which is cool. So something like that kind of geometry I think would be super useful. Even curves or for hair or grass or water would be super useful. So we need some useful objects, not just spheres, teapots, and whatever the hell this is. But there's a lot of potential there, I think, for Vectron. And is again, like, it's exciting to see what Otoy comes up with. They're just a really ambitious company, and honestly, I just love their product. It's just nothing. You just get great looking images really quickly in Octane. Okay, so there's Octane, there's V-Ray. I guess we can. Oh yeah, let's talk a little bit. So F-Nord is the company. They do a Pro EXR plugin, which is now integrated into After Effects, but they now support Cryptomatte in After Effects, and so I'll do a little demo of that. Maybe I'll just do it live here in a minute. But Cryptomatte essentially with V-Ray or Octane isn't available in Modo Vanilla yet, just these other renderers. Essentially will automatically create mats for every single object in the scene, kind of like an object ID mat. But it does it all just within one sort of node. It will also create mats for all materials in the scene. So you can have an object, or maybe two objects, but maybe there's one, two, maybe there's some stickers, maybe there's multiple materials, so it'll do the objects and the materials for every object in the scene. And then when you get into Nuke or After Effects, you just use sort of an eyedropper tool to pick whatever you want to matte, and then you could pick the top of the cup and color correct it or whatever. It's just way more efficient. It's just super easy and way more efficient and way more pleasant to use than rendering out a bunch of separate mats yourself and then hooking them all up individually. So Cryptomatte is awesome, and this is the type of thing where in a couple of years, everybody will use. Everybody will use Cryptomatte. They'll use it for everything. It's just one of those kind of like EXR. It's just one of those new formats or new bits of software that comes out that will make its way through the industry based on its own merit. It's just a really, really great thing, and now available in After Effects, which is very cool. Okay, so that's Cryptomatte. After Effects actually just this is a Modo channel, but I use After Effects a ton. I've used it since like version 2 or something, before some people were probably born. I love the program. Great program. There has been an update on Adobe has just released it, and I haven't downloaded it yet, but really only one major new feature. It does have some performance improvements, and if you use expressions like I do every once in a while, that's been improved. But the one feature it does have is actually pretty amazing, and this is this content-aware fill, which we've seen in Photoshop before, but now you can do it in After Effects, and you can do it with videos. So you can just sort of use a mask to outline your car, or in this case, a flag they want to get rid of, and it'll use just sort of scene. It'll analyze the scene. I'm not sure if it's using AI at this point, where it knows that's a flag and behind it's a mountain, and those are people. Quite possibly does. That's the type of thing that's going to improve this performance, where it's not just going to look at pixels to blend in. It's actually going to separate out different items based on just machine learning and being able to pick out things from the scene and know that flag is in front of that mountain. But it's getting pretty crazy, like what you can do. And this is actually going to be really important for VR because water. I mean, water's constantly moving. That's just pretty crazy to me that's doing that. When you're shooting VR, like, there's just no way to get rid of like the camera, right? It's just going to be in the view. So you have to use something like this to get rid of the camera in VR shots, and so pretty cool. Pretty taking away graffiti, leaving the bird. Anyway, so one really cool feature, a whole bunch of just things they had their intern do, I guess. I don't know. And that's the way it is with subscription, I suppose. This is what people have talked about. You just small incremental updates. And this really, with Adobe, they're only doing these really once a year, it seems. Again, it makes me appreciate Modo, where you're getting these 3 times a year. You're getting pretty significant updates from Modo. I have 13 up. Here's 13. So you're getting pretty significant updates in Modo 3 times a year, which I think is a pretty good deal for subscription. With Maya and Autodesk, like I've been using Maya for, again, a couple of decades about now, almost. That's, I think 2001, maybe 2002, right when it came out. Maybe Maya 2 or 3 was the first time I used it, back when it was around $20,000 or more. Anyway, I think this is the first year I'm not going to renew my maintenance for Maya. I never did go on subscription because I didn't think Autodesk offered a very good deal with that. They appear to have improved it now. I believe you can keep your old version, where prior to this you had to like trade it. I went on a big rant about this at a prior podcast, but they're just not offering a ton now. It seems like they went through a little growth phase where they did a lot of work on Maya, did some really good work on Maya. Now that seems to have tapered off. I haven't seen much about 2020, but I'm not going to throw $1,000 at it sight unseen. And unfortunately, with Autodesk, you get penalized if you miss your renewal period. Then you're just cut off. You're done. If you ever want to get back on it, you gotta go subscription. And they've been pushing subscription hard. They have been pushing it hard. So that's where that is. And I think I'm done with it. I think if I'm going to, I don't really use Maya that much anymore, except for simulation. And when I first started using MODO around version 101, I could only model. I used Maya for everything else. And as MODO has picked up other features, including animation, I really only use Maya for simulation, even only sometimes at that, because MODO simulation is decent for the type of stuff I do, basic particles and some basic hard body stuff. And if I learn another program, it's going to be Houdini, and not sticking with Maya probably. So that's where that's at. Just a little personal note. So here's MODO 13. I'm just going to go through just a couple of my favorite features here on this release. Obviously, there's a much longer discussion with Shane and Greg and Matt Cox on Pixel Fondue's YouTube page. It's like an hour and a half long or something, going through 13 in quite a bit of detail. But I might as well show a couple things while I'm here. First of all, ProRender Beta is a separate install. So if you want to get the ProRender Beta from the ATI ProRender, you need to install that separately. Then it'll show up in its own tab there. And what I like about this, I know this is taking them a fair amount of time to get this going. Well, really, I think what they're trying to accomplish here is integrating a third-party renderer on a sort of equal citizen status as the MODO native renderer. So if you look at Octane or V-Ray, they've got their own sort of UIs, right? Their own frame buffer window and their own toolbars and things like that. And you're sort of pulled a little bit out of the MODO world while you're working with them. And ProRender just looks like it's part of MODO. It just kind of looks like the regular MODO preview. In fact, if I bring up the regular MODO preview here, it doesn't quite have everything that the preview does. It doesn't have the different effects yet. And maybe, I'm not sure if those are planned or not, but you've got the LUT and you've got the render and pause there, and you can save an image. It looks like the basic MODO preview render there. And it works with the shader tree. You don't need special nodes. You don't need to work in the schematic to hook things up like you do in Octane, or use a bunch of different V-Ray nodes like you do in V-Ray. It's just kind of working. So, which is, it's live, real time. And it's also working with NVIDIA hardware. I've got a couple of GeForces in here you can see, and even though this is an ATI renderer, it's working ATI AMD, I guess, renderer. They works fine with the NVIDIA hardware, which is great. And you just work with it like you would with MODO normally. In fact, I think it'll even work with different shaders. So here we've got just the standard physically based shader, but you can use the Disney principled shader as well. In fact, I saw in the forums that some people think this may even actually work a little bit better. You can up your specular or up your roughness or knock it back down, whatever you want to do. And it's not 100% stable yet. It's not fully feature integrated yet. You can't use procedurals, which I think is the one thing everybody really wants from these GPU renderers, is to be able to use MODO's fantastic procedural textures. It has a ton of them here and a ton of them here. But I believe that's still coming. I believe they're still working on that, and the idea is to have some sort of rasterizer or something to bring those procedurals into our third-party renderers. But there it is. Play with it. Use it in production if you really want to. It's there. So I think that's pretty cool that we're getting closer on that. MODO itself, let me just start a new scene. I'm just going to go over two quick features that I like. Do a quick little demo here. I like MODO's. I like the fall-off blending, and I like the new merge mesh operator, which will bring in particles. So let me just come up with something really quick that can do that. So let me go over to my little rigging tab here and add a PMod. So let's do a particle generator. And so one thing I really wish, these particle generators, Now, speaking of Eric Solvay, which I talked about like at the beginning of this, I think he wrote all the PMOD stuff, all the particle generator stuff, which he did a great job on, by the way. But here we are many years later, and I still cannot see my particles in the scene in here. So right now I've got a 4x4x4 array of particles, but all I see is this crummy locator here showing that the particle generator is alive and active. I don't see the particles in the scene. I would really like to do that. In order to see them, you have to add a replicator and some geometry, which is fine. We'll just do that. And I'll just add a quick ding, ding, ding. How about a cube? Cubes are good. Let me shrink that down a little bit. And once you get all this stuff hooked up, you can see where the particles are. So prototype is going to be our cube, and then point source will be the particle generator, and there they all are. I can hide my cube, and of course, using the new little icons up here that showed up in MODO 12, and I know you all have them memorized now, we can show replicators right there in GL. So there we go. So pretty sweet, and you can yeah, you can do all kinds of stuff with this. So anyway, so I've got a particle generator, and I'm actually going to let's bring these things into the schematic so we can take a look at some of the fall off stuff here. I'm actually going to select this, whoops, plug that back in, select that node there, and I'm going to add a particle modifier. So we have a particle, if I can spell, particle modifier, and I'm just going to increase the scale of these guys. So press C and push that up. And then all of these can be adjusted with a fall off. So I got a fall off slot there for my particle modifier. I believe it's called blend fall off. There it is. And that's going to hook into my fall off there. And then I'm going to add a couple of fall offs to this guy. And you can also see them over here in properties. Let's just add a radial fall off. Boom. And you can see already that this is actively causing a fall off in that scale node. All right, and then I'll just add a let's just add a linear fall off. Okay, and I'm going to hook up this guy as well. In fact, I'm going to let me unhook the radial one for now, and with this linear one, just so we can see what's going on, you can kind of see how this is operating. I'm actually going to go back to my original mesh and shrink it down so we can see that a little more. And here I'll just increase my range a little bit. And here, to get this little thing, I just want to make sure I'm in item mode, and I press C, and it's my channel hall. If you don't use that, it's a great little tool in MODO. But you have to be in item mode. Otherwise, if you press C, it's going to think you're doing a polygon slice. But that's channel hall. Anyway, so there's a little fall off on that guy, and I want to blend it. So I'm going to hook up my radial fall off as well. And you can set the blend to multiply. And like anything in MODO with a stack, it's evaluated from the bottom up. So linear first, then multiplied by radial. And then if I animate my radial across here, I need more scale going on, I think. If I animate my sphere going here, you can see that going on, right? Okay, cool. Cool, so why don't I just animate this guy, bring up my time, and do a little key there, and come over here and do a key. Maybe over here I'll just move that this way a little bit. So when I scrub time, whoops, over here, yes, and I scrub time. Okay, it looks good. So that's blending fall off. So what's cool is I can actually take this modifier, these particles here from the particle generator, and the ones that you couldn't see, the procedural particles, and I can actually bring those into a mesh now. It'll just make vertices out of them. And so I can just do, let me just do this, call this original thing here, the cube proto, and press N for a new empty mesh, and call this merged particles, and bring up my little mesh operation stack here with this icon, and add a mesh, or merge mesh, I believe it's called, merge meshes. And then for sources, I'll just add this particle generator right here. And so that's it. And so if I look at my, go over here and say Control 1 and look at verts, I can see all the, and let me hide my replicator. You can see the vertices there, those black vertices. Let me hide some of these things. The black vertices right here, they're just vertices, and that's my particle generator. And because it's procedural, if I go to my particle generator and let's say increase the length between them, whoops, go to my particle generator, I can do that, and it's just being fed into the merge mesh, right? So I can actually take my merge mesh and kick that out. So now that I have my particle generator sort of flattened down into actual geometry using this new merge mesh operator to turn the particles just into vertices, I can still use those in this setup I have here. So my particle modifier will take vertices as a source, so I can plug that back in, show my replicator here, and everything's working just fine. Let me just Control-1, toggle locators, get my fall-offs there. So everything's working just fine, but now I've got actual geometry there as a particle source, right? So I can just deform my geometry like I would any other geometry. Now, I couldn't add a deformation modifier, like a twist or something, to the particle generator, but I can to these vertices that it's been sort of merged down into. So I can just add operator and say twist, or what is it, vortex. This is the worst name. Okay, as the first order of business of the new Roper owned and operated foundry, I want somebody over there to change the name of the vortex effector to taper twist, because that's what it does. It twists things and it tapers things. Doesn't vortex anything. So anyway, got my vortex. All right, I'm just being annoying now. But I'm just operating on, you could just, if you want to see it here in the schematic, you could do that. And there it is there. But I can just take my vortex here and do some spiraling or twisting. And you can see what's going on there. In fact, I can take my particle generator, because it's procedural and that's still live and it's being flattened down and then twisted. I can increase my length on Y like this, and I can increase the count in between like this. You can start to see this twist happening a little bit better, I think. There we go. Yeah, see the twisting quite a bit. So yeah, so there's a number of things going on there with being able to blend fall offs. I could still animate this fall off through there like that, or make this quite a bit bigger like this. So being able to blend fall offs is going to be a big deal for people trying to do effects animation or tweak morph maps or do things in animation. Basically problem solve. It's a great tool for problem solving. Now you can get all these fall offs that you use both for mesh operations and deformers and particle systems and physics. The same fall off for everything can now be blended together. And of course, merge mesh is going to be like the most used mesh operation, because it just allows you to kind of pre-comp things. If you use After Effects, you know what a pre-comp is. You can basically take your whole composition and just package it up and shuffle it off to the side, and then you can operate on all those layers at once. It's kind of the same thing going on here with merge mesh operations. Just super, super useful. And anyway, this is just some stupid example I thought I'd come up with, but I think that works pretty well. I think we all get it. Okay, so a couple more things I want to talk about, then I will wrap this up as I've been babbling. Since I've been babbling on long enough. ArtStation, I always like to look for some MODO work on ArtStation. And this guy, Davison Carvalho, I know I've shown his stuff before. I linked to it on the Pixel Fondue Facebook page. He's just a really good artist. Uses MODO. He's the lead UI artist at Microsoft. I'm not sure exactly what he's working on up there. Microsoft, maybe Bungie, maybe one of those. But he just does some really cool work here. This is just like Adobe products and MODO. We've got here like Illustrator, Photoshop, MODO, the Alien Box unboxing, Alien Box of Nothing, I think it's called. Anyway, I just really like this guy's work, especially this Astrolab. I just think this steampunk Astrolab is one of the coolest images I'd seen done in MODO. I just think it's really super cool. This is MODO. Let me just double check so I'm not talking out of my ass. Yes, MODO, Illustrator, Houdini, and Photoshop. That's a really cool one. Also, this guy's obviously just a really good artist. Here's some more sort of UI stuff that I believe was done in MODO. But he also did, was it this one? Yeah, these are just drawings. Just like, so it helps to be a really good artist. So yeah, these are just some marker drawings, some of the Coptic markers he's used. Do some sci-fi stuff. Must be nice to be talented like this. Anyway, really cool stuff. Actually, looking at some of his work, I actually think, Davison, that you could benefit from using Octane or V-Ray in some of these renders. I think some of the depth of field that you can get in GPU rendering that happens just so quickly in both Octane and V-Ray, and some of the post effects with blooming and glaring and things like that would suit some of these images really well. But anyway, check that out. I'll also link to that on there. And almost lastly, but not leastly, let me just go to the Pixel Fondue webpage here. So featured is the review, or the MODO 13 release with Shane and Greg and Matt. That's a good one to watch. This Unreal Bridge one by Pascal is a really good one to watch if you're into Unreal, which a lot of people are. Mostly I wanted to talk about, again, Matt Mearsbergen has been doing this great series with character animation. It's sort of a whole project with this Ladybug, using from motion tracking and all the way up to rigging and animation and compositing. And those have been getting a lot of views. And then Rich Hurry has been doing crazy stuff with his rigging. He released one a few days ago. Turn that down. Where he's talking about the MODO assemblies and some of the rigging abilities that MODO has. Again, MODO's animation is actually, and rigging is super sophisticated, and you can do things in MODO that I don't think a lot of people are really aware of. And you have a guy like Rich, who's obviously a master at this, but he's going to be creating a new series, masterclass for these. But just watching these little 5-minute videos he puts up, where he doesn't go into huge detail, but he sort of shows you what the program is capable of, is really pretty enlightening. And it's pretty amazing. And if you watch the MODO 13 release video, Matt Cox, who's in charge of a lot of this procedural architecture, talks about how he's going to focus on speed and performance a lot throughout the 13 series and maybe into the 14 series. And really, that's what's holding MODO back in this area. It's not features. Like, MODO has a ton of features. In fact, has a lot of features that other programs don't necessarily do very well. I don't see things like weight containers and things like that in other programs. Some of the morphing, built-in vertex map abilities that MODO and had or got from its Lightwave heritage are great. But all of the schematic stuff is really well done, and there's been a ton of schematic improvements in 12 and 13. So again, I think there's once this training comes out and you see some more programs coming out, like Lucas is coming out with a new version of his software as well, the ACS software. I think version 3 will eventually be coming out. I believe Lucas let me say that. No date yet. I know he just got his PhD, so he's been working on that. But ACS 2, Advanced Character Setup 2, is out. It's a great program that I haven't used. But anyway, so a lot of rigging stuff is available. Sergio, also all this stuff. Another MODO Master Rigger that has some kits out that you can get, and he's on the forums a lot. Anyway, a lot to dive into with MODO rigging, and this whole series by Rich is really good to look at. Same with the series by Matt Mearsbergen. Both of them are really good to look at. The only other thing I really wanted to talk about this week, and this kind of came at me as a kind of a big surprise. Pixel Fondue's been up for, coming on not quite 3 years, but it's going to be coming on 3 years now. And we're coming up on 10,000 subscribers. Looking at watch time, 3.5 million minutes, 1.7 million views. So, it's doing well. It's a place people go to for good training. A lot of that success can be attributed to William Vaughn's videos. But really, there's just a nice group of people from a broad variety of users who create stuff, content for Pixel Fondue, put it up here. And gotten a lot of views, right? 1.7 million views. That's a lot for a little industry like this. But the thing that really jumped out at me, this is just the age metrics. So 35 to 44 and 25 to 34 being the two biggest ones. Not too surprising. 55 to 64, almost 6%. That's pretty interesting. And 65 plus, we've got some retired MODO users out there, which I love. And 18-24, I'd like to see this one go up. I'd like to see more the younger kids getting into this, who are just starting out in 3D, jumping into MODO a little bit. My guess is they're getting started with the Blender, getting their feet wet. I'd love to see that one go up. Maybe that's something that the new and improved Foundry under the leadership of Roper can get after and bring up that number a bit. But the one that really jumped out at me, which was not such a good thing, is gender. And that's our gender at Pixel Fondue. 1.7 million views, and we've got 97.7% male. That's just not good enough. I I don't know, and I am completely clueless as to why that is. Just 2% of these the viewers are female, and I'm not sure. I don't know how YouTube analytics works. If everybody who goes onto YouTube has to have their gender in their profile, I can't really remember, but that's got to be better. So, if you're a female pixel fonduer, send the link out to some other females. If you're a male, send, I don't know. I feel like that number should be going up. I don't know if this is just 3D in general. I think if this were Photoshop based, that number would be a lot different. You know, we've got a few Photoshop tutorials on here and a few, you know, After Effects ones. And I wonder, and Illustrator, and I wonder if some of those female viewers are just are users of those programs. I just think 3D in general needs to reach out more. I just really love to see that line go up. It just seems weird to me. 98 out of 100 people who watch videos on here are men. That just it seems a little weird to me. Anyway, so maybe that's the topic of another discussion. Maybe we could talk to Lauren or some of the other pixel fonduers who are women that I know, and just see what their opinion is on that. But that may be something worth talking about. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here. I meant for this to be sort of a bi-weekly thing. Maybe I slipped to a month, but we did have the big interview with Shane and the Foundry members just a week or two ago. So I think that's okay. And yeah, have a good weekend. I know I am going to go try to wrap up Far Cry 5. That's what I'm going to do.
Yum, yum!